Presentation of 13ABC Action News. Now, your table is ready. Join 13ABC's Jeff Smith with the decision makers of Northwest Ohio and Southeast Michigan. This is the Roundtable.
And a good Sunday afternoon to you. Thanks so much for spending some time with us here on the Roundtable program. We work tirelessly here at 13ABC to try to bring you stories of those who have made a difference around the community, those who have made a difference around the country, and today somebody who has made a difference around the world. He is a New York Times best-selling author, performance coach, psychologist, former NBA player, and former St. John's Titan. Here in the Toledo area back in the 1990s. I'm sure he needs no introduction. Joining us today via Skype from London, England, we are welcoming in John Amici to the Roundtable. John, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
Thank you so much for taking some time to join us. And obviously, it has been some time since we saw your face over on Airport Highway playing basketball for the St. John's Titans as a student athlete. What do you remember about your time at St. John's?
I love my time at St. John's. Every time people ask me about my basketball career, I have to correctly inform them that that was the place where that made the difference. I had 1 year that I had to get good enough in that 1 year to get a scholarship. And if I hadn't have achieved that, I would have gone back home to England with my tail between my legs. I got to St. John's. They realized that I was a serious student, that I was interested in academics, and that was important. But they also realized that my family had no money, and if I didn't get a scholarship, I wasn't going to go to university. And they facilitated that for me. Ed Heinschel took me under his wing, and as a coach, but also as a mentor. I have very, very great memories of him taking me. I don't remember the name. I probably couldn't pronounce the name of the lake in Michigan that he used to go up to, and have me and him row through what I thought was the wilds at that point. It was a remarkable experience of high school, a learning curve that I couldn't believe, but I cherish those memories.
Of course, you went on to Penn State University and then the NBA, and much success there. And John, you have gone on to create your own identity as a businessman, as a psychologist, going around and speaking with groups, better business performance. We will get more into that in just a moment. John, you also made news back in 2007, and I'm sure everybody knows the story when you came out and said, I am gay. And I am gay for the betterment of my life, coming out of the closet. This has taken a new definition this week with what we have seen in the story that has hit the columns across the country. Of course, we were talking about Jason Collins coming out and also being a current athlete in the NBA. First and foremost, you have been quoted as saying, you knew this was going to happen eventually, just didn't know when, but your reaction to this garnering so much attention?
I think it's, I mean, there's two approaches to this. There's one where you kind of wish it wasn't a big deal anymore. But on the other side, you realize that it is a huge moment in time. And I think for several reasons. One, because of the personal qualities and characteristics of Jason himself. We could not ask for a better role model. And I don't mean a role model for gay and lesbian people. I mean, had we had this conversation a week ago, I could have said with the same conviction that here is an athlete, a professional athlete that we wish was the model for all professional athletes in terms of he is charismatic, he is eloquent, he's thoughtful and considerate, he's dedicated and hardworking. He is exactly what we wish more of our athletes would be. And with the events of the last 3 or 4 days, he has only become more so, more authentic, and more valuable to all of us.
There have been a number of organizations that have come out with statements. A number of people have come out in support. Equality Toledo, one of them. We wanted to show people at home the message that we got from them this week, and I will read it to you and get your reaction from that as well. If we could show the people at home that. I don't know if we have that. Okay, we'll press on right now as far as that is concerned. John, one of the other people who have come out was Jason. Jason did not identify himself early on in life, though he said he sat on this for quite some time. He said it's like being in an oven and baking for some 34 years and then finally being ready to come out. When he made this announcement, there was reaction across the board, including his fiancée at one time. Here's what she had to say.
You know, for me, it's a lot of mixed emotions. Obviously, first and foremost, for someone to actually realize who they are and be happy in their own skin is a very important message for mass public. I think the important message here is to realize who you are early in life and to be able to be comfortable enough to bring that to mass public, and those who surround you, as in your loved ones, really understand who you are as a person, and to be comfortable enough to say who you are to those people.
So, John, what is it right there about the always knowing but just can't say? Do you feel that's changing now?
It certainly is changing. If you ask most of the LGBT, lesbian and gay organizations out there, they will tell you that the age that people are coming out is younger and younger and younger. But I would say it isn't necessarily because they are more forthright or because they are more activist. It's actually because younger people just don't think it's such a big deal. And what they really want is an authentic friendship. And that requires that you don't have to hide. It requires that you don't have to use gender-neutral pronouns when talking about the people that you like or where you went and who you went with last week to the cinema. So there are very legitimate reasons why young people are coming out younger and younger. For his generation, my generation before him, it wasn't always the case. In fact, there was almost a courtesy that you just keep your personal life to yourself. And that meant that people felt that they had to hide. And I would say also in certain professions, people felt like they had to not just hide, but provide cover. And that might mean being in a relationship with somebody who you eventually know that you can't be with. But I would add this as well. I think that Jason's former fiance's words were incredibly gracious. I think she showed a level of maturity that indicates when she does find the right person for her, she is going to be a tremendous partner.
Talk about the element of sports in this all. Obviously, we have seen other high-profile figures who have come forward and talked about their own sexuality, but Jason has been, at least this past week, heralded as a hero, and we'll get more into that. But you also, I mean, you stepped away from sports and then made your announcement, but how does it all play into it, and is it a hindrance or is it a help?
I don't think there's going to be much controversy in terms of his sexuality and finding another job. I've said this before, but the reality is that the biggest hindrance to Jason finding another team to play with isn't his sexuality. It's the fact that he's 34 years old. He's got 12 years worth of wear and tear on his bones and muscles. And right now, the NBA is in a position where every kid from college in this country, pretty much every kid who plays basketball throughout Europe wants his job. And so the biggest hindrance to Jason isn't his sexuality, it's the 18-year-old Croatian who's 7 foot and would be willing to take a third of what Jason earns as a veteran for his position. That's the real challenge there. But I have a feeling that people are going to look at him and think, with the exception perhaps of one or two teams are going to look at him and say, look, he's a solid guy. We've known him for 12 years. We know what he provides. We know that he's a stabilizing factor in the locker room, and you really can't underestimate how powerful that can be during the course of a season. Take a look at teams like the Lakers, who've never stabilized this entire year, despite having immense talent. Those guys are key. So I still think there's a place for him to play in this league.
I'm sure you've gone through this in your mind the last week or so, but putting yourself in Jason's shoes and going back in time, would you have been able, even just a few years ago, to make the announcement while you were still in the league?
I don't think so. I think he's far more brave than I could hope to have been. And also the fact that I came from a different pathway to him. He played basketball his entire life, came into basketball and with his brother and had that kind of almost destiny. Whereas I started playing basketball when I was 17 years old. 6 years later, I was starting for the Cleveland Cavaliers. I did not feel safe at any point in my career. Not from a sexuality point of view, but just I always felt like I'd really earned my place to be here. And in terms of my sexuality, I didn't want to lose that job on the basis of something I didn't choose. All those great decisions I'd made in order to go from being a 17-year-old fat kid in Manchester to being a starter for the Cavaliers. And I might lose all that because of who I was. It just seemed unacceptable, especially in the light of me playing for teams whose owners donate to anti-gay causes, whose owners are vociferously and openly, I wouldn't say show hatred of, but certainly great dislike for the LGBT community.
I think I saw you were quoted as saying that you had protection, and I put that word in quotes, while you were playing with the Magic. You had teammates who knew?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it wasn't you can't spend 110 games every single day with somebody without knowing a little bit about their personal life. And that it's just impossible. Even if you don't want to know some of the things about your teammates' personal life, you just can't help it because you're saturated with your teammates. It's one of the things about being on a team. It's an incredibly intimate environment where you are privy to the daily lives of the people around you. And I found that whilst it was definitely a don't ask, don't tell situation where my teammates didn't really want to talk about it, they did not. I did not feel any pulling away or any lack of embracement. I felt like they had my back. I really did, especially in Orlando when I played, but also in Utah. And even when I came out, I had Karl Malone and I are at opposite ends of the political spectrum. He is a cowboy hat wearing, gun toting, crazy guy, and I'm the opposite of that. And after I came out, I got a really lovely call from him and his wife, talking about how they supported me and how they wanted me to know that. So the teammates for me were never the issue. The owners of teams at times were an issue. Coaches at times were an issue, but never my teammates.
Let me ask you real quick, and I don't know if you were able to see it on Thursday of this week, being today when we're taping this interview, but in USA Today magazine, or USA Today newspaper, Christine Brennan, who actually hails from the Toledo area, she had an article in there about former Green Bay Packers safety Leroy Butler, who sent out a congratulations tweet to Jason Collins. He was scheduled to speak at a church in Wisconsin, and he sent out a following tweet that read, "Wow. I was scheduled to speak at a church in Wisconsin, and a member said that the pastor wants to cancel my event. I said, okay, why?" He continued, "Then I was told because I said congrats to Jason Collins on Twitter. I said, really? We have a contract." He said, "Check the moral clause." Your reaction to that?
I think it's a shame. It's incredibly short-sighted. I think the real issue for me here is that I often hear people who claim to be of great faith, who claim loudly that they're Christians, often, or other denominations as well, I'll be honest, that their speech is being curtailed, that their rights are being curtailed. And it seems to me here that that's exactly what they've done. The idea that an individual can't congratulate someone for their bravery without that indicating necessarily wholehearted support for their life, because I don't think that's what he indicated. Said congratulations for your courage, for being authentic. To me, this is the root of principle, that a person is willing to empathize with the world around them. I would imagine that would be what Jesus would do, empathize with the world around him. So it just seems incredibly short-sighted, and it brings, once again, bad press on people of faith.
Do you consider yourself a Christian?
No, absolutely not. I'm an atheist. But at the same time, I do understand faith. Unlike many Christians, I've actually read the Bible and the Quran and the Book of Mormon and many other texts, because I think it's important, if you're going to talk about not believing, to at least know what you're not believing in.
John, stay right there. When we come back from our break, we've got more to talk about, including some tweets that went out by CBS Sports radio host Tim Brando. John Amici joining us via Skype from London. We're back right after this.